Hey everyone, I'm Calluna, and welcome back to another episode of Screenshots, where I talk about some of my favorite forms of media, from anime to video games and everything in between. Some of you may remember a little while back when I played Digimon Cyber Sleuth, a surprisingly fun Digimon game where I didn't want to stop playing it after an hour. Huzzah! If you haven't, you might want to check out that before watching this video. There was a second game in the series, Digimon Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory. Yeah, that sounds like a JRPG title, doesn't it? Well, let's see if the second game in the Cyber Sleuth series was worth the wait. Hacker's Memory takes place at the same time as the first game, making it a midquel rather than a proper sequel. Bandai Namco describes the plot as an other side story that tells the events of the previous game, but from the perspective of an outside character. Therefore, it shouldn't really be surprising that they reuse a lot from the previous game. The real-world locations are mostly the same with the exception of your new base of operations in the internet cafe. You also visit a lot of the same Eden locations as before, though at least here they are adding in a few new locations for you to visit. Like the police database. Look, you can totally tell it's the police because of all the sirens! That really is a rather silly design though. There were a good number of new Digimon added for the game, nearly 100 actually. I did try to explore new evolutionary lines in the game, though there were a few of my favorites that of course I had to stick to. If there is a Wizardmon available, so help me, he will be in my party, damn it! Thankfully, there are quite a good number of other Digimon I hadn't used in the previous game, so it wasn't too difficult to deviate. However, since I know now how tiring the Digivolution process could be for some of the more complicated evolutions, like the DNA Digivolving, I did end up avoiding some that I had missed out on the first, like Pyldramon or Sylphimon. So, what is the plot of this game? Unlike the first game, where you get to choose your character's gender and are more like a silent protagonist from the Persona series, this time the character has a set identity. His name is Keisuke Amazawa, but since I do get the choice to at least choose his first name, I named him Butsuke, because I am a child.
Let's see if it lets me do it. Are you sure
Are you sure you want to call him Butsuke, like,
yeah,
for
why
real?
not? Sure.
Poor Butsuke had his account stolen by a hacker, which in this universe is essentially identity theft. He got a temporary account made, but that made people suspicious of him, suspecting him to be a hacker since they often use temporary accounts for hacking crimes. So Butsuke decides that in order to get his account back, he will have to become a hacker. Gotta prove to everyone that despite my temporary account, I'm not actually a hacker. I'm a victim. I'll find some way to get it back and prove I'm not a criminal.
How are you gonna do that?
By becoming a hacker and out-hacking them!
Wait, wouldn't that make you a hacker? You know, that thing that you said that you aren't?
Yes, I'll prove my innocence of hacking by hacking. Flawless logic.
You are truly a genius.
A hacking genius who is innocent.
Of hacking.
Yes.
Good luck with that.
Butsuke teams up with a group of hackers called Hutie, and a good chunk of the game is you learning the ropes of becoming a hacker, investigating incidents that might lead to your missing account, and dealing with the events of the previous game when they become relevant. Butsuke's opening dialogue even has him describing himself as a background character, so yeah, wow, way to get me invested. At least he's not running around saying it is his story when it clearly isn't.
Listen to my story.
Hutie consists of you and 4 others. Chitose, a ladies' man who acts like your big brother, Ryuji, the leader who's very sullen and keeps a lot to himself, his younger sister Erika, a tsundere hacking genius who acts as your oracle equivalent, and her partner Digimon, Wormmon, the cutest goddamn thing in the game. The voice that they gave him is unbelievably adorable, and I enjoyed every second that Wormmon got to hang out with us. What's nice about your core group of friends is that they feel a bit more fully realized than in the previous game. It does take a while for the game to feel like there are stakes, but once that does happen, I became very invested in helping out my friends. Erika's story is bizarre, but in keeping with this world. After a car accident, she suffers from a strange disease where her brain overprocesses too much and basically could overheat if she doesn't store mental data and her memories in Eden, so her fascination with Digimon and the problems that arise from her disease kept me invested.
少し前からなんとなく気づいてた。お兄ちゃんが私のために危ないことしてるって。もういいよ、お兄ちゃん。私のことはもういいから。
いいわけあるか!
Hacker's Memory doesn't just reuse locations, you pretty much interact with every character from the first game. Even minor characters from single missions who are just NPCs and look like a bunch of random other characters. Unfortunately, we never really get to interact with our character from the last game, which would have been nice, but oh well. The most you get is 1 or 2 scenes where they're both in the same location, but they don't really talk to each other.
Hey, that cute girl looked kind of important. She had a protagonist feel about her. Should we say hi?
No, we don't have time for this. I gotta get my account back, plus your sister's hotter.
Wait, what?
While you do see other major characters from the first game, like Nokia or Kyoko, this game allows you to hang more with some of the supporting characters from the first game and get to know them better. In particular, you get to learn more about Arata since the other Cutie members were part of his previous hacker group, Jude. Some of my favorite moments were getting to hang out with Date and Matayoshi since they apparently have some history with Ryuji. There is a lot of, hey, remember this character feeling while playing this, so I wouldn't recommend playing this game without having played the first one, especially since it does spoil some major events that happen in the first game. Thankfully, there are a few things in this game that helps distinguish it from its predecessor. First of all, we're just a normal human now, rather than a half-human, half-data person, so we only ever focus on missions relating to Eden. Thankfully, they've changed it so that you are no longer an errand boy, running randomly around the maps to find shiny objects. You are still stopping other hackers from being evil though, so that hasn't really changed. The difference is, you can't get to say that you jumped into an air conditioner to fight an ice Digimon, which is as hilarious as it is amazing. Instead, the game introduces 2 new mission types, territory battles and domination battles. Territory battles are where you and one other party member group up to take over territory being controlled by a different hacking group. You run around a level in Eden, taking over team emblems and replacing them with your own. Along the way, you battle the hackers, but there is some sort of support effect going on that eventually will be put on the opposing team when you have more emblems than them. Some of these include not being able to use items, having a negative status on your Digimon, or having a positive status on the opponent's Digimon. You have to keep moving quickly though. If you wander too long, the enemy will take back their emblems. A lot of the hacker teams have Digimon themed around their name, and I'm not even kidding, one of them is poop themed. Digimon is weird, man. In domination battles, you and up to 2 other hacker friends are teamed up against an opposing team of 3. Rather than a straight-up battle, you take over squares each worth a variety of points. You want to try to take over enough spaces to get to a certain numerical goal. Anytime 2 opposing characters end up on the same space, they get 1 attack for each of their 3 assigned Digimon. You can only take over the space if all the Digimon are defeated, so more often than not, you're not going to be able to destroy an opponent in one round. Damage carries over each time, so you need to do a bit of planning to beat the teams. Defeating an opponent doesn't eliminate them from the game. They restart at their home base with all 3 of their Digimon back to full health, so you need to make sure you're thinking a few steps ahead. I never found these particularly difficult, but it was a nice change of pace from the generic group battles you spend most of the game in. This game adds a bit of a social element to it by allowing you to choose party members to join you on territory battles and domination battles. You'll get fun scenes with them after the battle, and sometimes they will give you an item for it. The game also gives you some rewards for helping out Digimon who ask for your aid. Sometimes you'll befriend the Digimon you've helped, and they can be one of the party members for territory battles, which, depending on the Digimon you help, can earn you a powerful ally. Most of the time.
Oh, thank you. I'm so grateful for you saving my life. Anytime you need an ally, I'll be there.
That's great, Modimon, but you're an in-training Digimon, and I got like 5 ultimates, so I'm good, but thanks? I managed to get Belzamon at one point, which was not only a great nostalgia trip, but it saved me the painstaking process of his Digivolution track. While it's not revolutionary, it feels more meaningful than, hey, help me find this shiny thing, oh great, here's some money, or a potion. The after-battle scenes are a little on the brief side, both for human and Digimon allies, but overall it feels like a nice improvement. The game has improved in other ways. It streamlined the process to accessing the Digilab, and considering the amount of time you spend in it, that's a nice change. Since you are a hacker rather than a person who randomly gains hacker abilities, you get a few new hacking powers unique to this game, like Acceleration, which allows you to move through the level faster, or Restoration, which can be used to fix broken Mr. Nabbit robots sprinkled throughout the game. Restoring these robots will grant you items, or new things called hacker memories. These are mostly flavor texts that give you some background on the world of Cyber Sleuth, some scenes with the supporting characters you normally wouldn't see, or even some journal-style stories that enhance the main story. The ones I found most interesting were the ones dealing with Arata and how his former group, Jude, came together and broke up. Again, these aren't terribly substantial, but if you are invested in the world, then you'll probably enjoy them. One part I found stupidly amusing was the Firewalls. In the original game, these just exist to prevent you from getting to higher levels before the story wants you to. As you level up, you hack the wall, it opens, and you move on, without any real issue. This time, however, you literally fight the firewall, which will be a bit of a surprise considering you never had to do that in the first game. Alright, let's get through this wall, get to the next area, but Digimon... What? Oh god, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Ah! I mean, sure, if you're gonna have this setup where the firewall is an actual wall, yeah, okay, let's punch it and laser beam it to death. These aren't usually too difficult to fight, assuming that you've been properly leveling up your Digimon like in the first game. If not, the giant laser beam of death will certainly make you rethink that. You were introduced in the beginning of the game to a place called the Digimarket, a black market where you can purchase a variety of low-level Digimon to use in your party. It's a good place to go if you're having trouble finding different Digimon, or if you get attached to one evolutionary track but want to try another. It does address the morality of a black market for sentient creatures about halfway through the game, and you can choose to destroy it and remove the mechanic from the game entirely. I really liked this because this was one of the few times in the game where we had a really strong choice to make, and it actually does affect the gameplay. Since so much of the story is following along with the plot elements from the first, it really did feel like we were living in the shadow of the first game for a lot of these early story beats. Overall, the side quests in this game were more enjoyable, though a good chunk of them were pretty much the same from the first game. There is one side quest in particular, though, that feels very inspired by Danganronpa, and the tone in that one was all over the place. Trust me, you'll know it when you see it. It definitely helps that it had the same composer from the Danganronpa games. My favorite side quest has to be the one where you are constantly being pursued by a person in a Mr. Nabbit costume. It is bizarre and really funny. The ending is kind of left inconclusive though, which really frustrated me since this was the one I was most looking forward to seeing the ending to. One fun bit I wish had a little more variety was the costumes. The outfits that you can get for yourself are fun, but I wish we could have had a few more to choose from. Your Digimon can also wear accessories, but I had no idea where I was supposed to find more since I only ended up having one or two. It was pretty amusing to see some of my Digimon looking kinda cute with a pair of goggles on them to then looking just ridiculous later on. It turns out you can get most of them in the online Coliseum, another new addition, but one that I never felt the need to try. Whether you are playing offline or online opponents, it's basically just you fighting against really strong opponents and then getting rewarded for them. Since so much of the game is just straight Digimon battles, I kinda left this alone because, well, I felt drained having played the first game and this being really similar. I was really happy that Wormmon got to be involved in so much of the story, since that was something I felt had lacked a bit in the first game. Digimon who have personalities and actually have an impact on the story. It's understandable why for your character since the player is controlling who's in the party, but I wish we could have had more conversations with other Digimon. Aside from Agumon and Gabumon, there weren't many other Digimon who played a large part in the story, at least those who weren't disguised as humans for most of the story. Wormmon is very cute, and really manages to feel like a fifth member of Hudi right alongside you. It was a little weird for me to hear such a high-pitched voice compared to the deeper voice I had associated with the anime, but it was very easy to get used to.
エリカは人間ですもんね。私に何かできることありますか？ない。
The strongest parts of this game, for me anyway, were the parts where we were focusing strictly on the Hudi group and getting away from the plot elements already seen in the first game. Erika's character arc is the most interesting, and we get to see some really great art design when we go to her memory server in Eden. It was the most visually appealing part of the whole game. After the the introduction, the first half of the game felt a bit slow, as it was relying on a lot of the same locations and re-meeting of characters we already knew from the first game. It really did feel like Butsuke was sort of bumbling around and just so happened to become the protagonist of the story. If anything, Erika probably would have been the main character by normal game standards. However, I think that ultimately benefits the protagonist in the second half of the game, where he needs to take charge and really step into a leader role. If you had played the first game and found the nature of this game to be rather repetitive, I really recommend keeping with it just a little bit longer because the story does get better as you go along, but I can understand if you felt it was too similar to the first game and didn't want to play the first game all over again. The enjoyability of this game definitely depends on what you were looking for in a sequel. If you were looking for a completely new game and story, this might not be the one for you. It kind of feels like a long DLC with how much it's borrowing from the first game. There are enough changes that warrants it being a second game, but know that it is going to have the same basic approach to gameplay and story. I did put the game down for a bit and come back to it during some of the slower story elements, and I didn't put in nearly as much time for digivolving as I did the first game, since I had spent so much time doing that already. I do recommend taking on all the side quests, since you do get some decent items and character interactions. It will feel like you're kind of just waiting around for stuff to happen, and if you remember the events of the first game, undoubtedly that feeling's only going to make it worse. However, once it gets going and you find more agency in the protagonist's story, I kept right on playing through to the end.
ルーシーも消えた。エリカも消える。みんな消える。消える。消える。
Most of the music is the same from the previous game, but there were a few new tracks added to the newer locations, like Cutie Headquarters and Erika's memory server. The opening theme definitely feels like a sequel to the first game, bringing back some of the same melodies but adding more techno beats onto them that sound like they match the game. Like I said in the first Cyber Sleuth review, I absolutely adore Masafumi Takada's music, and while I would have enjoyed a bit more new songs to listen to, I still got a kick out of hearing his first soundtrack again. One more negative that I have is kind of a big spoiler, so jump cut to this time in the video if you want to avoid it. One of the biggest disappointments from the first game was that we never got to go to the digital world. Yes, we are in Eden, but that's just a manifestation of the internet. I'm talking the digital world, as in the place where Digimon are from. I was hoping we would get the chance to see it this time around, but alas, this is not the case. I know so many Digimon games take place in the digital world, and that maybe this game was trying to avoid being too similar to them, but still, that would have been a nice change, especially considering some of the later game story elements. So overall, while parts of this game were a great improvement, a lot of it was frustrating or repetitive, so I didn't go all out with exploring or trying new Digivolutions like I did in the first game. The story elements that are original and don't tie too directly with the previous one are the strongest and most interesting aspects of the game, but it can be a bit of a slow start before you become invested in it. Most of the gameplay changes were great and helped to streamline it a bit, but really there's only so much that has changed from the first game to this one. You explore an area, fight Digimon, collect data, create your own Digimon, and level them up. It's obvious that they were trying to change up the gameplay a bit by adding the territory and domination battles, but it would have been nice to have more of these to help give the game more original content. If similar gameplay won't frustrate you, then I think the story in this game is a vast improvement from the first, but it does take a bit of time before that becomes apparent. I was really looking forward to this game after I enjoyed the first one so much, and while I do have a lot of conflicting feelings about this one, I don't regret playing it at all. It was a nice return to the world developed in the first game, and while I couldn't spend as much time with it as I did the first, I think this was an enjoyable experience overall. So for those of you who played this game, did you like it more than the first? Did you manage to finish it, or did the repetitive nature of it make you stop completely? What new Digimon did you use in this game versus the other one? Were there any that surprised you? Personally for me, I was not expecting Pandamon to be as amazing as he was. Post your thoughts in comments below. I'm really curious to see what you guys thought of this game, especially because I myself was very conflicted about it. Alright guys, I'm Calluna, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Screenshots. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye! Hey everyone, just wanted to let you know I have a Patreon page. If you're not familiar with Patreon by now, it's a website that allows you to donate a small amount each month to your favorite content creators. You'll get a bunch of different rewards depending on the amount that you donate. Feel free to check out my page to see what kind of rewards that you can get by helping to donate. Every little bit helps, and helps to make this show even better, so wouldn't be able to do it without you guys. Thanks.